This week marked 5 years since the collapse of Lehman Brothers investment bank, triggering the largest financial crisis since the Great Depression. This week also marked the second anniversary of Occupy Wall Street, an uprising that sought to channel the grievances of the financial collapse into a movement for change. And while the protests in the street have subsided, the message behind Occupy has not, particularly as we learn about the growing economic inequality in this country. While the U.S. income inequality has been growing for nearly 3 decades, last year the gap between the richest 1% and the rest of America reached the widest point since the 1920s. This according to global economists who analyzed IRS data going back to 1913. What they found is that the top 1% of U.S. earners collected about 20% of household income. These staggering numbers are exactly what's explored in a new documentary called Inequality for All, featuring former Labor Secretary Robert Reich. Take a look.
Of all developed nations, the United States has the most unequal distribution of income, and we're surging toward even greater inequality. 1928 and 2007 become the peak years for income concentration. It looks like a suspension bridge.
Last year, we made $36,000.
I probably make $50,000 a year, working 70 hours a week.
Earlier, I spoke with the director of the film, Jacob Kornbluth. I first asked him why all Americans should care about the growing economic inequality gap.
When the economy is so out of balance, when the structural foundation and how the economy is organized is so out of whack, this isn't just a moral question. It's not just not fair that the rich have so much of the income. It also affects our economy overall. Our economy is stagnant now. At the same time, the incomes are so disproportionately divided, and that's because of this income inequality. And secondly, it's because it also affects our democracy. So our economy and our democracy are both in shambles partially as a result of this widening income inequality that we're seeing today.
Absolutely. Well, this week marks 2 years since the rise of Occupy Wall Street, a movement that tried to tell the story of inequality for all. The criticism, of course, was that Occupy wasn't able to elicit real political change. So how do you channel this important dialogue into action?
Well, I think Occupy did a lot of wonderful things. I mean, it certainly put this issue of income inequality on the national radar in a way it wasn't before. But it sort of, I think we didn't get past the headlines, the 99% and the 1%, to sort of get a deeper understanding of what this income inequality really means for us. When all of us are worried that our economy is stagnant, that we can't get ahead in our jobs, that we have such economic insecurity on an individual basis, and we're also worried that our politics are too partisan and that it feels like we might have another government shutdown next month. So if we understand that income inequality is one of the root causes of these major problems that we're all concerned about, then I think that's a different understanding than maybe the Occupy movement brought us to as far as what all this stuff means.
Sure. And for a lot of people, the subject of economics is not the easiest to understand, yet ironically, it's one of the most important subjects to understand as it crosses paths with nearly every decision that's made. How challenging was it for you to tell a story about the economy in a way that was compelling, that could engage a lot of people?
Well, I have no economic background, and I'm not particularly a political person when I started making this film. So it was important to me that the film be not only true, but also entertaining. And my wife is a school teacher. She hates politics and economics, too. And she loves this movie, and not just because her husband made it, either, but because she says it's for the first time she really gets it. When you see the movie, it not only talks about income inequality, but it connects the dots for how it affects our economy and our democracy in a way that I think makes the issue, it sort of does have a sort of aha, like you sort of understand it maybe for the first time, past sort of the headlines of the rich have all this and the poor have all that, or the Republicans think this and the Democrats think that. This is a big picture understanding of why income inequality does affect us all.
And Jacob, this film is not actually the first collaboration for you and Robert Reich, the main voice in the film. Can you talk about how you two originally got connected and how it really translated into a documentary film?
Sure. Well, first of all, I grew up poor. I grew up, my mom raising a family of 4 on between $9,000 and $15,000 a year. So I've always had sort of a keen interest in who gets what in society. But I never had any way to sort of voice that interest. And then I got really frustrated after 2008 and decided I wanted to make these short 2 to 3 minute videos, these kind of explainers that could explain to people like me who don't have an economics background some of these issues. I felt sort of trapped in a 24-hour news cycle where I was hearing all this news but not getting any understanding of the issues that were sort of facing me. And these videos sort of answered that, and hundreds and thousands of people started seeing them. I pointed the camera at Reich, I asked them questions that I wanted to know, and people got some information they needed, and that sort of gave me the confidence that making a film like this would have an audience as well.
And of course, Robert Reich was the former labor secretary for Bill Clinton and also served in the administrations of Carter and Ford. Were you worried at all that his political background would make the message of the film politicized?
You know, I think anytime you make a film called Inequality for All and you put somebody like Robert Reich at the center of it, there's a danger that it gets sort of trapped in the same partisan bickering that I was trying to avoid by making this film. But the way we approached this issue was to try and take a big picture view. We step out of the sort of partisan fights of the moment, and we try and look at, say, the last 40 years or even the last 100 years, and sort of look at the shape of the economy. And what you see then is something that Republicans have had issues with, and Democrats and liberals and conservatives. When an economy gets this unstructured, as it did in 1928 and again as it did in 2007, in both of those 2 years, those were the two peak years of income inequality, and the economy had its two biggest crashes of the last century right after both of those years. So this is something that concerns both Republicans and Democrats, and when you step out of the sort of day-to-day 24-hour news cycle into a larger picture, it doesn't really feel partisan. The film sort of challenges the assumptions of people both on the left and on the right.
Sure, and you know, Jacob, we only have like 30 seconds left, but I wanted to ask you about Kickstarter because I know you used that to raise funds for the project. You made it well beyond your stated goal of $75,000. How instrumental do you think Kickstarter and other crowdfunding services are in leveling the playing field in Hollywood?
You know, what's inspiring about Kickstarter is the fact that people who care about an issue can get together and do something about it. We were sitting in the edit room and we would see it tick up $10, $20 at a time. So it means that people who don't have a lot of money can have something to say about the types of movies that get made and get out there. And for that, these things are wonderful opportunities for filmmakers like me.
Well said. Well, that was Jacob Kornbluth, director of Inequality for All, in theaters September 27th. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you.